Hello everybody, Marie Gervais here, and this is our monthly session where I feature a few videos that you can look at and consider for using with your clients, your students, or whoever it is that you're working with. So in Multilingual Video Stack, we have a number of featured videos that are available in a number of languages, as you know, and I'm going to show them to you in English, but most of them are available with subtitles that you can also use if you need to. So today, the focus is on cross-cultural communication, and I'm going to show you a few of the videos that I chose specifically for this. So I'll share the screen. And this is a particular video right here. What we've got is we've got a Cameroonian teacher and colleague. This Cameroonian teacher and colleague come up a few times, and in this case, they're having a conversation that involves understanding each other using direct and indirect communication. And this actually came out of a conversation that a Cameroonian colleague told me about. That's how we created the video. But since then, we've had some more interesting feedback, which I'll tell you about after we watch the video. So it says here, the video shows linear and circular communication, and the Canadian asks direct linear questions and answers questions directly. And the Cameroonian tells a story using a saying to get his message across. After a while, they both start to adjust to each other's styles. And it is of note that Canadians tend to be risk averse when it comes to a question that they may have some potential conflict involved in, and very direct when it's just an informational question. However, in a number of African countries, Sierra Leone and Cameroon are in different parts of the continent, but they have a similar issue where people are not going to necessarily give you a direct answer to an informational question. And so it's interesting to take a look at it. Now, there are some discussion questions that go along with this, so whoever you're showing it to, you can discuss these questions, and probably you'll think of some more. So this one is what's going on in this conversation. It's helpful to hear people's perspectives on that because they may have different ideas about what's going on than you think. And what style of communication is the Canadian teacher using, and what style of communication is the newcomer from Cameroon using, and have you experienced either side yourself? So please describe. So that can make for a very good discussion if you bring that up. So I'm going to show you the video now, and we will have a new share so you can see it. And hopefully we can optimize the screen for sound. There we go. All right, so here is the video. The beginning doesn't have any sound, so don't worry if you're not hearing any right away.
Why do you always wear a suit to teach grade 3 students?
In my country, we like to show respect for the job by dressing smartly.
Your students probably wear uniforms, don't they?
Yes, this is a standard practice. That way, there is no distinction between parents who can afford good clothes for their children and parents who cannot.
I can see why that would be important. But still, it all sounds very formal to me. If formality is so important in Cameroon, why are you always late for the staff meetings?
Do not step on the dog's tail, and he will not bite you.
What is that supposed to mean?
If you think about the meaning of this saying, it will become clear.
I don't get it.
You will understand later on. But you see, for us, time does not mean the same thing as it does to you here. I find this constant emphasis on time very stressful.
Well, here we say, time and tide wait for no man, and the early bird gets the worm.
I don't think we have any proverbs about time in my culture.
Oh, I understand what you meant by the saying about the dog's tail. You mean, I'm getting too pushy.
You see, there is more than one way to understand things. Water always finds a way out.
So in this particular video, what we had was the the situation of a person who was expressing himself in a circular way, and another person expressing herself in a more linear way. And they eventually managed to find some ways that they could communicate with each other effectively. So now we're going to look at a different one. Oh, I wanted to tell you beforehand, I wanted to tell you what a recent comment was that I received. So this was not a man from either Cameroon or from Sierra Leone. He was from Mali, and he said to me that he thought that the Cameroonian teacher was being rude with the Canadian, and I thought that the Canadian was kind of rude with the Cameroonian. He thought the Canadian was not rude. He thought the Cameroonian was rude. So that I thought that was interesting, how we both had a different perspective. And that's what's important about intercultural communication, is to try to tease out what the other person's perspective is. And then once you understand where the other person is coming from and they understand where you're coming from, it's much easier to communicate. So now let's look at another one. And in this one, it's a situation of a boss who is a Canadian boss at work with his Filipino workers, and he gives them some instructions, and he doesn't understand what happens when they don't follow them. He doesn't know what the issue was. So I'm going to show that screen as well. So here it is.
You wanted to see me, boss?
Yes, we need to change the shipping procedure because we have an extra order from Kyoto and they have specifications that we need to set up separately for.
What do we need to do?
I want the Kyoto order stacked back to front with reverse alphabetical order and barcodes visible on 5 sides. Do you understand?
Sure, boss. I'll take care of it.
I'll come in to see how things are going in a couple of hours. What happened here?
We stacked the Kyoto order boxes like you said, boss.
But it looks the same way it always does. Why didn't you follow my instructions?
Sorry, boss. We'll fix it right away.
Sorry doesn't cut it with me. Who is responsible for this mistake?
Okay, so in this particular situation, what we have is we have a boss, and the boss is not understanding that he has to check for feedback because what he's got is he's got a collectivist culture working for him. So he's got Filipinos who are highly risk avoidant, and they are going to work together as a unit. So one person is not going to say, I think we're doing this wrong. Let's check with the boss. That's not likely to happen. So in this particular situation, the boss could have avoided his problem if he would have asked for the foreman that he spoke to or the worker that he spoke to tell him how he understood the task to be, or to explain to him how he would show it to his team. And because he didn't do that, there was a misunderstanding. It could have been that it was too fast. Oftentimes people, whether there's language or cultural barrier or not, people only hear the last part of a sentence, and that's what they remember. So if you said something like don't in the beginning, then that could cause a problem for understanding, because you might do the opposite. So here he very quickly gave the instructions and said he'd come back and check and ask, do you understand? So you want to always erase that from your vocabulary. Do you understand should not exist in your vocabulary, because people always say yes. So you need to get them to respond by showing you or telling you or teaching somebody else. And so potential discussion questions you can ask are, what factors contributed to this misunderstanding? What could the boss have done to make sure his instructions were understood? And why didn't the workers say who was in charge and who was responsible? So it's because they were not going to point that out. They're not going to say that somebody made a mistake. Many cultures won't do that, but particularly collectivist cultures. So I've got 2 more videos to show you. This next one is another misunderstanding between 2 cultures. In this case, there's a Czech boss and a Canadian intern, and the Canadian is working for the Czech boss. And so there's a problem, and the intern is communicating in a way that you would in Canada, but that does not seem appropriate for the Czech situation. The boss is extremely insulted, and she ends up losing, the Canadian loses her job over this situation. The same thing can happen to anybody when they come to a new country, because they don't know what the hidden hierarchy expectations are. So there are, the questions are, how is the management style different in the Czech Republic than in Canada, from what you can tell from this particular clip? What's your experience with the management style in Canada versus your own home country? And what could the intern have done differently in this situation, assuming the issues were serious enough to have them addressed? So in this particular situation, it is a serious incident. However, the intern can't get the attention of the higher up because of the hierarchy. So we're going to look at this one. As soon as I can get the share happening. There we go.
I wanted to meet with you because there is a problem with one of the other interns and the manager. I'm sure they will want to know about this since it is so serious.
Why do you think I would be interested in workplace details? Who does she think she is? Does she think she can bring up a problem about my friend without consequences?
Well, it is a serious problem, and there are people who will be hurt if we don't do something about it soon. In Canada, I go to my superiors and let them know about a problem. My employer doesn't even seem interested in hearing about it.
The institution will take care of any problems. It is not your duty to bring them up. We are going to let this intern go immediately.
All right. I'm available if you want to know about the situation then. I don't understand this attitude. There are safety issues and ethics involved here. What is going on? I don't understand this attitude.
You can take your things and go. We won't be requiring your services anymore. Impertinent foreigner.
What? Can't we talk about this? I didn't do anything wrong.
So there you've got the the issue of somebody who is really not understanding what the hierarchy is, and it's causing her a lot of problems with her boss to the point where she loses her job. And you may not like the way this goes, but she is in a different culture. She has to figure out what the cultural expectations are so she can find out how she can work within them. And in cases where she decides not to work within them, she will at least be informed so she knows how to proceed effectively. And that's more or less what we discuss in the analysis with this particular clip, which is the last video that I wanted to show you today. So in this one, we look at the kinds of questions the intern could have asked to get an idea of what the workplace hierarchy and protocols were. And this can give you some insights into what you can do if you happen to be in that situation, or if you're speaking with somebody who is. And the discussion questions are, what do you think about the suggestions in the clip? Are they helpful for newcomers to Canada or employers of newcomers? And how much does hierarchy affect boss-employee relationships in your home country or in Canada? Do relationships between superiors matter in Canada and in your home country? So there are going to be nuances to all of those questions. It will make for a very interesting discussion with people to find out what their suggestions would be. And hierarchy, this can help a lot of people who lose their job before the 3-month probation period. So when they're in the 3-month probation period and they're let go and nobody tells them why, it's often because of a workplace expectation that was different between the two cultures, but people don't know what that was. So they automatically blame the person on the other side as being somebody who is out to get them, or rude, or inappropriate, or incompetent, when in fact frequently it's a misunderstanding between two cultures, and when they understand what each person had as an expectation, it's much easier to solve. So if you are aware of hierarchy, then it's much easier for you to ask the right questions and to pay attention to the right clues. Now this is the last video I'll show you. Since I can get my share function to work. There we go.
Apparently, in the Czech Republic, relationships between the people in authority who know each other is more important than solving a really big problem.
And there's a very big hierarchy difference too. If you're lower down in the organization, you don't bring things up at all to a superior. Probably even less if you are from outside the country.
I would really have trouble with that, and it appears the intern did too. She's obviously used to having a say at work.
She is in the Czech Republic though, so she has to figure out how things work there. Every country has their own way of doing things, whether you like it or not.
Well, maybe she could have started the conversation by saying, in Canada, when we have problems with other people, we usually tell our boss about it. Is that how people do things here? That might have given her an idea of the expectations, or at least softened the boss towards hearing what she had to say.
Or maybe she could say, what is the protocol for workplace problem solving here? Then when the boss says, the management makes the decisions and the employees do the work. The intern would have had a better idea where things stood.
Well, one way to approach that problem would be indirectly. But when you think about it, in most countries, a younger person is not likely to be listened to at work as someone older and with more seniority. And relationships between superiors do matter everywhere.
I agree, but there are country differences that have to be figured out.
Well, how do you do that without making mistakes?
I don't think you can. Trial and error. Find ways to ask questions directly or indirectly, then try and figure out what went wrong so you can deal with it more effectively next time.
And so there we have it, some very useful tips for how to figure out intercultural communication differences. So we're back to where we started. We had 4 videos about intercultural communications that did not go well, and I hope that this helps you with using the videos in Multilingual Video Stack. And I'm looking forward to hearing your suggestions, and here's your call to action. Go into the chat box into the Multilingual Video Stack and answer the question of the month. We've got a great question up there for you, and it's sure to trigger a discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing your comments in the chat box.